Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. My sister-in-law, 32 female, has 2 kids, 5 male and 3 female. While they are really sweet kids, they are not the easiest to handle. They are incredibly hectic to take care of. My nephew clearly has ADHD and he is constantly bouncing off the walls. I'm a university student and it is not ideal for me at all when sister-in-law asks me to babysit her kids for free because my entire day goes behind them and I do not get paid for it as I am family. My semester is ending and I am slumped with work to be completed. So when my sister-in-law called me asking me to babysit her kids, I refused. I told her that I have work and I will not be able to do it. She told me that I could do it for her as she is family. I may have been TA here as I told her that this is precisely why I do not want to babysit the kids, because I'm not getting any financial compensation for this either, which makes it pointless, as I would not be able to get any work done. I won't earn any money, and by the end of the evening, when she takes the kids from me, I would be too exhausted to even work. She heard what I said and repeated that she will drop the kids off at my place on her way to work. I told her she should not be doing this as I will not be held responsible for them, but she had already hung up on me. 2 hours later, while I was in the midst of cramming my work, I heard the doorbell ring, and what do you know? My nephew and niece were standing at the door. I asked them where their mom was, and from whatever words I could make out from my nephew, my sister-in-law had asked them to get out of the car and come up to my house, and the moment they reached the door, she drove away. This behavior is incredibly typical of her. I decided that this is not going to be something that I will tolerate any further. Making sure the kids do not hurt themselves, I went inside and got my keys. I took the kids and drove for 2 hours to my brother's workplace. My brother is an accountant working for an MNC. His office was not hard to find. I called my brother down, and the moment he came up to me, I gave him the kids and told him about the whole situation and how my sister-in-law has done this before. My brother was very pissed with sister-in-law because sister-in-law allowed the 2 children to come to my house completely unattended when anything could have happened to them. He thanked me for dropping the kids off and I went back home. I was busy with my assignments until later that night, so I did not check my phone, but oh boy. When I did check my phone, I had messages waiting for my mom and my sister-in-law. My mom and sister-in-law both think I am an a-hole because I did not babysit the kids and instead dropped them off with my brother, as a mother deserves breaks once in a while. It was mean of me to refuse my sister-in-law the break that she deserved. While I do understand that taking care of children can be stressful, I do not think that it is fair to me that she would drop them off with me while she took her well-deserved break and refused to listen to my points. So AITA, what do you all think? So my sister-in-law has been leaving a lot of nasty messages in my inbox since that night. She has been insisting that I am a mean and selfish person, and because I'm not a parent, I do not know how stressful taking care of kids can be. She also thinks, as a woman myself, I would be compassionate towards the struggles of her fellow sister, and yet here I was, barely doing anything to help her out, which just is not fair to her. I explained to her over text that I was not trying to do things just to be a villain or paint her as a bad mother like she's taking the situation to be, but she is not open to listening to my side. She thinks I did this intentionally because I wanted to ruin her marriage with my brother, which is simply not true. I have no idea why my not being open to taking care of my nephew and niece for one day spiraled this way, but oh well. I took screenshots of all the messages she has been sending me, and I forwarded them to my mother as she was the biggest supporter of my sister-in-law. I think the biggest reason my mother is so supportive is that in her eyes, sister-in-law is the ideal daughter that she has always wanted while I simply was not. I have made it very clear that I was to lead a child-free life, and my mother has always felt entitled to grandchildren, so maybe it is that. I showed her the messages, and told her that if sister-in-law expected me to look after the kids after she's accusing me of so many things based on nothing, then she is dead wrong because I will not be doing that. But surprise, my mother simply took her side again. She told me that I am being extremely rude to someone who is a mother and still struggling to get used to motherhood of a child who has special needs. While I understand the sympathy towards her, I do not quite understand why they are banding against me and villainizing me when really all I did was firmly set a boundary for that day and told my sister-in-law that I will not be able to accommodate my nephew and niece in that day due to prior commitments. 2 nights ago, my brother came over to my house. He looked extremely agitated and distressed. He asked me if he could stay over at my place, and I agreed. He slept on the couch for the whole day and did not open up about what caused this. When he finally opened up, I felt so bad. Turns out, every time my sister-in-law would drop the kids off at my place, under the guise of taking a break, she would go over to meet with her ex. The meetings were quite intimate. As I have refused to allow sister-in-law to drop off the kids over at my place, sister-in-law has not been able to go over to the ex's place, so instead of dropping off the kids, she went with the kids to the ex's house and left them in the car when she got inside. She kept the AC running or something, but obviously that did not seem like the case for the passerby because they saw a kid crying with a baby who looked unconscious and called 911 before breaking in the windows. My nephew was running a high fever of 102 due to crying for however long while my niece was unconscious. The breaking of the car windows blared the alarms, and when sister-in-law came out, she was distraught. The emergency services came and took both of the kids to the hospital with sister-in-law tagging along with them. At the hospital, they called my brother, and that is when he learned the truth. Once the kids were better, my brother sent them over to live with Mom, letting her know about everything that her lovely daughter-in-law was doing, and instead of going back home, he drove 5 hours and crashed at my apartment. I felt so terrible for him because he did not deserve that at all. I tried to comfort him as much as I could. I told him that he did not deserve this at all and he is not the one at fault. He told me that I should not be sorry because if I had not refused sister-in-law that day, he would have never found out about this whole thing. So in a way, he is glad that I helped him out. I could not say much. I simply helped him out as much as I could. He told me he's going to stay over for a few days so that sister-in-law has time to move out with everything. It has been a while since I updated you guys. I have been busy with exams, which started all of this drama in the first place. All of you who were hoping that my brother would get rid of my sister-in-law, yeah, that is not happening. They went through the entire situation again between the two of them and decided that couple therapy is a better option. They have been diligently visiting the therapist, but I have no idea how everything is going. I visited my family after the semester was over as I had not seen my parents in 8 months and it was a family lunch. My brother and sister-in-law were there with the kids. My sister-in-law insisted on pretending that things did not happen and everything was perfect and my brother and mother are going along with it. Once lunch was done, I had the opportunity to sit down with my brother and I got to learn about everything that is happening in detail. My sister-in-law decided to blame her infidelity on my brother's busy work schedule and how she does not feel like she is in love anymore. Brother was not cool with her saying that everything was his fault because he was doing his best to provide for the family by working so many hours. That is why they decided to go to the couples therapy to get some more clarity, and they both decided that they will live separately, but would not separate legally. My brother refused to divulge the reason behind that decision, and I did not force him, but I have a feeling that perhaps it is because they signed a prenup. And as sister-in-law cheated, she will not get any financial backing if she did divorce my brother. So they are planning on living separately, having this open relationship thing. I did not bother much about it because if that makes my brother feel comfortable, I will not be the one to comment on it. My brother wants to provide a full family for the sake of the kids, so he is hoping to file for a legal separation once the kids are 18. Seeing my brother that way upset me, but if that is what made him happy, I was not going to judge him. I supported his decision, nevertheless, and I genuinely hope for the best. Your sister-in-law is such an entitled person. NTA for miles and miles. You have exams and assignments, and you informed her. You told her that you can not take care of them and that taking care of a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old is not easy. The fact that she let them go up to your house completely unsupervised bothers me so much. That 5-year-old is not old enough to take care of the 3-year-old at all. Your sister-in-law deserves a break, surely, but she can leave the kids with her mother-in-law or at daycare or hire a babysitter instead of doing things like this. Very entitled. At first, I thought you were a TA because it is just 2 kids and it was not going to be for the whole day, probably. So there was no need for you to send the kids away. You could have left them in front of the TV or something, but then as I went through the post again and the fact that she would not compensate you with some money bothered me. Then I read the updates and Jesus Christ, she sounds extremely uncaring and immature. Because how could she leave her kids in the car just to get some sex? She does not deserve to be a parent. My daughter turns 5 on Friday. My mom tells me today that there's a retirement party she's going to on Friday and asks what our plans are for the birthday. I'm immediately annoyed by just being asked this because every year on my daughter's birthday, we have had my parents over. Clearly, they're going to be involved, and with it being a Friday too, kind of a no-brainer. I'm going to be asking them over. Generally, in my family, things like birthday plans are last-minute come-on-over type of things. So the obvious answer my mom knows is that there are no exact plans of what time we are doing things, but that we will be asking them to come over at some point when I'm out of work. I guess my expectation was that on the birthday of her only grandchild, her calendar would be clear and I wouldn't be competing with any other social events. Asking more questions, she tells me it's for her brother-in-law, my uncle, and the husband of the sister she hangs out with the most. I don't know why I'm just being told this now, as I feel like retirement parties are planned pretty well in advance, and my mom claims she didn't forget my daughter's birthday either. Mom, 59, and I, 30 male, exchange a few texts and I throw some shade in my works, and she tells me I'm being unkind because she didn't think it would be a problem to attend both my daughter's birthday and my uncle's retirement party, as she was just asking what the plan was so that she could do both. I guess I find the idea that she needs to do both pretty selfish and unreasonable. I understand an adult retirement party is probably more fun for an adult to attend than a kid's birthday, but my daughter thinks the world of her grandmother and loves her dearly. My mom tells me I'm trying to start a fight and I'm being unkind for guilting her over this. I think my mom is being immature and selfish for expecting me to be understanding of her dilemma in having 2 sets of plans on a birthday for, again, her only grandchild, who is turning 5. AITA? I will say the way I wrote this probably made me sound like a much bigger a-hole than I am being. I did text my mom back, specifying verbatim that perhaps I was being an a-hole and we will work around a birthday time. I will say that my mom and I have had a rocky history which can make communication between us difficult. Seems like I'm being an a-hole here, I guess. Really expected the scenario to be too boring to get many responses from people, so thanks for the feedback. YTA, your daughter's birthday happens every year. And you said yourself, birthdays are a casual come over after work thing in your family. Your uncle's retirement party won't happen again. It is perfectly reasonable that she would want to attend it. She's made it clear that she wants to make an appearance at both celebrations. She was being kind to let you know that she has additional plans the day of, but you went all, "But it's my daughter's birthday," about it. You really want your mom to have no plans whatsoever for the entire day because it's your 5-year-old's birthday? I mean, YTA. You want your parents to clear their entire schedule, decline all other family events, and sit at home by the phone waiting to accommodate your lack of planning? It's fine to have a casual, spontaneous approach to birthday parties, but you are being unreasonable. Your parents, knowing the standard and knowing there were more events than one that day, asked for a plan so that they could show love to multiple family members, and you got angry. YTA, your poor mom has probably been dealing with your entitled attitude your whole life and is just asking for some timing to be confirmed so she can plan her day. Get over yourself and stop being so inconsiderate. Make some plans, let people know, because nobody but you thinks your child's birthday is the center of their universe. And your poor kid probably will grow up to be just like you. Yeesh. We had to go 2 hours earlier to the cafe to reserve seats for watching the game, and I felt sorry for my little niece, 8 female, just sitting there not having anything to do. I gave her my phone so she can play games or watch some YouTube to pass the time. When the game started, though, I took back my phone from her because it's fun to keep watching over the Reddit, Twitter threads and how messy things get in there. Anyway, it was part of the fun, and my niece was also fascinated by the game when it started and gave me back my phone smoothly. If you ever try to take something away after you've given it to a kid, then you know smoothly isn't easy to come by. 30 minutes into the game, my niece is getting bored and started clamoring to have the phone back. I told her no and that I was doing something very important. She reluctantly dropped it. 5 minutes later, my niece asks for it again, and I still say no, and a few minutes later, she starts crying. She goes to my brother and sister-in-law's table and cries about the phone. My sister-in-law comes over and asks me if I could give it to her just until the game ends because they already gave both their phones to their 2 other children. I told her, sorry, I'm using it. I'll give her my notebook and a pen so she can doodle on it. I thought that was the end of the matter, but my brother also came over and said she didn't want to doodle and was throwing a temper tantrum, and if I could just give her the phone. I told him that I was really using it, and he said, what are you using it for? I told him how it was part of the fun of watching the game to also participate in those threads, and he said, dude, what the frick? Just give her the phone, you can do that later. The game is only now. I still said no, and he was pissed and went back. A few minutes later, my niece comes over to me and says, I'm mad at you. I tell her, okay, I know, and hug her to my lap, and she strangely stays quiet for the remainder of the game. After the game was finished and the celebrations were over, the kids were all fast asleep in the car, but my brother was still pissed about me not giving the phone. We parted with an argument, and it just left a bad taste in my mouth. AITA? NTA. God, these entitled parents piss me off. I grew up being dragged to pubs and adult restaurants. If I wasn't curled up asleep under the table, I was coloring in. Parents always came prepared and made sure I had enough options to keep me entertained. Kid is spoiled and needs to be less dependent on a phone, of course. They're going to have access in this day and age, but if parents were to put their phones down more often and put a little more time and effort into their kids, they will have an imagination beyond the screen. Otherwise, tell them to get an iPad for the third kid to use. NTA, but your niece's parents are. Instead of berating you for making a choice about your own equipment you pay for, they should focus on disciplining their children and teaching them how to behave. They could take parenting classes to help get tips on how to entertain children whilst out of the home. You did nothing wrong. Your sister-in-law and bro were both extremely rude and had no right to question, dismiss, and demand you do anything. This situation was a parenting issue. The fact some parents like to tell everyone else but their own children what to do and how, and blame everyone else for their child's undesirable behavior is crazy. So what I read is that your brother took his children to a cafe to watch the World Cup for hours and didn't think to bring anything to keep them entertained at an event that is not designed for children. Yet somehow he thinks that is your fault? NTA.